All right, we're just gonna do a quick and dirty banner review for the YouTubes. What's new this Friday? Schicksal Arsenal with Star of Eden for Divine Key collectors, but also Kira gear. This is still pretty new. The first Kira rerun actually. Uh, 2 patches after original release back in 6.7. So this is really good for ice teams. Let's take a look at the off rates. Oh, yeah, a couple things right here. The only guaranteed piece is the pistols. So if you're rolling for Divine Key, just remember, it's not the guarantee. You could get really unlucky, or you could get really lucky, and you get, you get the up rates as desired. Cecilia, this is the desirable piece, the desirable stuff. You want 3-set. We were actually talking with Cupcake in the chat earlier about how 3-set is just really, really good. And, less than 3-set, you could run Bastet, TM, Newt B, or Turgenev top and bottom, and it would function close to the 2-piece. I don't even remember what the ideal 2-piece mix is anymore. If it were up to me and I were on my F2P account still, I would probably be running Irene TB. That's just where my mind defaults to. If Turgenev was used elsewhere, that is. Pistol, Star Dance, and then Heavy Weapon, Star of Eden, Anti-Entropy. So Star of Eden, Anti-Entropy, and then the upgraded version, the Priarm, Star of Eden, The World. That is Hersher of Reason, the modern weapon. If you can get it, excellent. It's a +10 attack for your dorm. Amazing, right? And let's take a look at the off rates. Elysian Astra, pretty relevant for bleed for Griseo. Miracle Kissy Pillow is a little bit older meta, but still kind of useful. Astral Rend White Dwarf for Spina is a little old now, but still a great placeholder scythe. And then Midnight, great for Lance users. It's Equinox weapon. And then Piranha Phantasma. So all the weapon off rates are pretty good. Pretty good weapon off rates. This is like an A+. Stigmata. Leyland Hook, craftable, but because G4 Fire is in demand right now, getting a Leyland Hook off rate means you speed up your farm time. Wang Zhenyi, kind of like a 3.5 for Lightning. Really good placeholder, really good all around, but it is conditional on your weapon active. So, when your weapon's on cooldown, you might feel a little bit damage loss. But overall, it's a really strong set. And it stacks on itself. Like, back on its original release with Fischl, Wales used to roll for 2 to 3 sets of this. Nowadays, the demand for multiple copies of Zenyi is not that high, but still nice to get like top and bottom as a set, or like 3-set for Fischl or any other character. It's a good placeholder for Lightning. It's a solid Lightning piece set. Linnaeus, a less generic placeholder nowadays. It's uniquely for Mobius, but you can run it on other Lightning combo characters as a placeholder. It's okay. And then Bronya next. This one is not aged as well. Top and bottom still go fine, but the M piece nowadays for Silverwing has been replaced by HTR's Bronya M. But the artwork is still good. You can probably, if you get off rates here, you can still use it on your ice characters as placeholder for DPS. I would still put it in that range of like kind of G3-ish. So overall, this is a pretty good banner. Some of the off rates for Stigmata are probably not as good as they could be, but still better than I expected. So what is your risk on this? The risk on this banner is that you could go 50 pulls and not get the Divine Key. You could go 50 pulls and not get your desired Stigmata, but you will at least get the weapon, which is kind of important for Kira. The weapon does a lot for her, right? Like, there's a lot of the ice trauma and then the bonus damage attached to this. So if you enjoy playing ice teams, you want that extra QOL, you may decide that either you have enough crystal savings to roll on this and still be okay next patch, or you think I can spare the crystals now, and then between now and then halfway into the spending event next patch, I can make up the crystals. So those are some considerations. Now, of course, if you have the spending power and you can brute force this to catch up on whatever you're missing, do so according to your budget. Words of the Stars, Kira. Kira's farmable, so this banner is mainly kind of an okay catch up for new players, like if you can afford it. Um, the benefit is that rolling for SP battle suits, the individual pulls cost significantly less. Every single pull is 120 as opposed to 280. Now, the downside is because these characters are completely farmable from Asterite Shop, you could potentially just save a lot of crystals by not pulling on them and you just, patiently build them. So, what's your budget? What's your budget? I would heavily advise F2P to not pull here. Now, if you're Dolphin new player or Whale new player, you may opt to just to speed up your ice team farming. You know, gotcha wisely, gotcha responsibly, spend responsibly on games with microtransactions. According to your budget. Not expansion hasn't changed. So the ADV and Dream Rend we've covered last week's, in the overview video. This you can refer back to the overview video as well. Flame Scion gear is your new Focus A. At this point, Focus A and Focus B this week is kind of like old stuff-ish. Mainly for collectors or, again, new players that are Dolphin and Whale that are trying to catch up. You're willing to spend a little bit more to just get your account established. At this point, if you're rolling on Focus A, chances are it's because Kiana's your favorite character and you just want to have her fully geared because you have Flame Scion already. Or, maybe you picked her up in the ADV banner and you just want to gear her out. Her signature gear definitely is the better of options, right? I think Wyvern had a chart where G4 Fire sims a little bit less, or I probably tested on dummies. Let's just look at the off rates. Key of Castigation, old meta. Tower of the Pass, Vilv, semi-old meta, unique to her. You can use it as a placeholder on other heavy weapon users, but diminished effect. Hecate's Gloom, pretty old meta. If you're a Teresa fan, there's a few niche utilities with Hecate's Gloom in a few fights, but for the most part, if you have Astra from another source, Astra will just be generally better. But if you're, a Twilight Paladin player, Hecate's Gloom is desirable. Miracle Kissy Pillow, old meta, but still useful for Carol. Still a decent placeholder on quite a few Fist users. Mittersnacht and Obscuring Wing, old meta, but you can get utility out of it if it's your first copy of it. Let's see here. Stigmata, Murata Himiko. I love this set because it's Himiko on the artwork. But if you hopefully this is what you're looking for if you're rolling here. Ozlog, old meta, but still fine if you get top and bottom together as a set. Ozlog M actually quite okay as a progression standalone M piece for fire teams. It's off-field buff for fire damage for the whole team, when the host is off-field, and it stacks with other similar effects like Musician M. So you could run Ozlog M with a Musician M, and that would be like a cheap progression way to get more fire damage on your main fire DPS. Top and bottom together is like an Irene Adler Turgenev-like effect. Ideally, you would have top and bottom or 3-set on Raven. But Ichan can sort of make use of it, not to the same degree. The duration on the top and bottom set bonus is a little bit weird. The feathered state. Designed for Raven, basically. So Ozlog is like an okay off rate. Not ideal, but you can get good benefit out of it if you're a progression account. Like, you're still working up to 88, etc. Columbus is craftable. It's a decent placeholder physical set for non-bleed physical damage dealers that actually do crit damage. Willows is G4 ice. So if you can snipe Willows, or if you get any Willows pieces, that could potentially save you some farming time. And then Bianca Theater, also a really powerful physical set. A little bit stronger than Columbus B, or it's pretty close with Columbus B, but it's more designed for Equinox. Um, pretty good off-rate stigmata. Weapons are a little bit on the older side, but you know, like again, if you're rolling on this, chances are you can afford to roll on it. If you're free to play, if you're strict free to play, I'd probably say skip this and just save for next patch. If you're budget and you've been playing for more than a year, I'd probably say skip this. If you're budget and you're new, I would probably lean towards skip. But if you feel like you really like Flame Scion Kiana and you want to gear her out, like, be my guest. Um, I feel like also if you get the weapon early, you can probably ditch the rest of the banner and just make do with placeholder fire gear. Like if you're farming gear for Siren anyways. That way you can have the main effect of the weapon, but then you save the rest of your crystals. That's how I would approach it. Now, of course, you know, if you have the wallet budget to spend on this, you know, do so according to your own personal limits. Uh, Oslog. Oslog and Mitternacht. We kind of went over some of this, right? This is mainly for Raven. Obscuring Wing buffs fire damage for your whole team, and Oslog has similar effects as well. You know, Feathered State takes bonus damage. Usually, when you're looking at Feathered State, it's going to be the top and bottom pieces, but the M piece has bonus damage for the team when the host is on standby. So when it says scale effect cannot stack, this cannot stack with itself, but it will stack with Musician M. That being said, this is pretty old meta. This came out at the end of 2021, back in 5.2. So where does that put this on the scale of in demand? Chances are you probably can get better stuff from other banners, or you know, maybe you'll get this from off rates while you're rolling for something else in the future. Yeah, each according to his budget and each according to your hair loss. Like how much time are you willing to spend min-maxing with what you have on hand, you know? Cuz certainly like if you want and can afford to, like picking up the old stuff to help smooth your progression out, it might make your experience better, or you might feel like you wasted your money afterwards because you realize, oh, I spent money on this, but in the end there's better options I could have spent on. And that's kind of the case for Focus B. Focus B is more for collectors at this point, or like, you know, high dolphins, new whales that are trying to speed up their catch up process. Let's look at the off rates. Keys of the Void, old meta. Crusher Bunny, old meta, but decent placeholder. Haxer Bunny was early mid 2021, and Crusher Bunny is a really nice all around elemental for heavy weapon class. Originally Haxer Bunny, so like, you know, maybe you're playing through the story chapter, you see Haxer Bunny. Crusher Bunny is a nice placeholder for elemental teams for that weapon class. Zither, this is a 2020 weapon, all right. It's good for physical buff for physical teams, but it's an old weapon at this point. Um, you know, there are niche situations where like it could be useful in a progression account, but it's not immediately demand. Nuada's Grief for Fuhua enthusiasts, for those that are looking forward to next patch, focusing around Fuhua, or even probably the back half of this patch will have the story chapter with Fuhua. Nuada's Grief is nice for Hawk of the Fog and Shadow Knight. So maybe if you like playing Shadow Knight in Elysian Realm, this could be a decent off rate for you. Astral Rend, wow, Astral Rend again. Great for Spina. Alair's Serenity, it's a pretty weapon, but it belongs in a museum. Aelidon famously had a video with Asuka testing all the new Priarm lances, and Alair Pry is just sadly a waste of Taurus. So Alair's Serenity, sad to see it here. You try to avoid that one. Obscuring Wing, good to get. Chances are, you know, if you're rolling here, you want it, right? But not modern meta anymore. Raven is pretty hard to play in the modern meta. SP farming with her takes a bit more effort than what most modern Valkyries are capable of. But the one benefit of playing Raven is that her buffs last a long time, and her off-field buffs, when you do have 3-set Oslog, are pretty strong. Stigmata off rates, Elysia Pristine, pretty good. It's like a G3.5 for ice, and it works great on Hersher of Reason because of the Hersher mode buffs. Raksha for Hersher of Sentience. Shattered Sword set. Yeah. Lota. Lota. um, the value of this set is pretty diminished now because this set has come up a few times in Battle Pass, and next patch we're getting new gear for Hersher of Sentience. But if you're a Fuhua enjoyer, you know, there's like some good storyline art in here. Shakespeare Adrift, great for Dea Ancora. It's Dea Ancora's signature, but this is craftable now. So value of it as an off rate is diminished. And then Banera's Awakening, this is the old gear for Hersher of Thunder. Great art if you like collecting the artwork, but you can also look at it in, you know, online, in the wiki. So Banera's Awakening is okay as a placeholder. It's kind of like a G3-ish equivalent. I used to use the MB on Banera's on my Fuhua for Hawk of the Fog, but you know, nowadays don't really need it because handle exists. I would probably rate this as like a C tier banner. I would probably just avoid it unless you're just itching to pull. After you've pulled, you know, Focus A and the other supply, right? After you've pulled Schicksal Arsenal and you're like, man, I can top up some more to juice my account. I pull Focus A, I get full gear here. Only after you've, you know, pulled on all the other banners to your heart's content would I recommend Focus B for this week. It's definitely more of a collector's banner, old meta banner. I would avoid, but you know, again, if you're a new account and you want to brute force some banners just to get more placeholder gear and, you know, try to catch up on stuff and you can afford to, maybe. But I wouldn't. Um, there are some niche use cases for double SMA HT scores in the case of Banera Stigs. Yeah, but I also feel like some of those strats, they kind of overlap with Zen Yi, right? And you could potentially get Zen Yi from Focus A. So that just ends up putting more emphasis on rolling on Focus A. Not that you necessarily roll on Focus A for off rates, nor would you roll on Focus B for off rates. Yeah, important reminder, you don't roll on these banners for the off rates because there's no guarantee you'll ever see the off rate. What you want to be pulling on these banners for is getting the up rate. Once you get your up rate, you can just leave and save. Yeah, they are very outdated for sure. And even as much as I love the Himiko set here with you know, for Keys of Radiance and for Flame Scion is also 2 years old in the meta. She still has her weathers and she still has her bosses and she's fine, you know, if you're Agony 3 to Red Lotus for fire weathers in general. Um but she is an older battle suit, and more or less, like if you're a new player, your main fire DPS probably will be Siren for the foreseeable future, provided that you're able to farm her up. Um, pretty. I feel like this is a pretty straightforward week. You know, if you can afford to pull for Kira gear, it's probably your most advantageous supply to pull on. Focus A and B you can kind of ignore, in my opinion. Now, mileage may vary depending on your situation and your budget. Uh, I hope you all found this helpful. Everything else we've covered previous in last week's review, and then we'll see next week what we got. All right, good luck, captains. Keep saving for next patch. I'll see you next week, or sooner.